47 years ago in 1976, when Supreme Father, the Almighty Lord, in the form of our beloved Master Kripal, decided to bless unworthy souls like us, he made his beloved son, our dear Sant AJAIB Singh, to allow us to visit him in 77 RB. I remember in the early days, there was not so much of bhajan singing in the groups. Because even though Sanji had written so many bhajans in the praises of his master, Lord Kripal, and his master, Lord Sawan, but those bhajans were not made available to us. When Master Kripal Singh had asked Sanji to leave the ashram where he was living and where he was initiated, Sanji had left everything there. So those bhajans were not available to us. We only had few bhajans from Gurubani, which we used to sing, or some dear ones from the West would sing English songs or English bhajans, which they also used to sing in their own satsangs. Sanji always laid a great emphasis on the importance of singing the bhajans in the Sangat, and he himself used to sing the bhajans in front of his beloved Master Kripal. Sanji used to talk about the times when beloved Lord Kripal came to Sanji's ashram for the first time, and Sanji sang the bhajan in his presence to him. Sanji used to say that when I sang that bhajan to Lord Kripal, I was getting all his grace, all his attention. He was looking straight into my eyes and he was blessing my soul. And with every single line of the bhajan which I was singing, Master Kripal would nod his head in approval. And many times he would, using his hand, his finger, he would say, yes, this is right. This is the truth. So Sanji always used to say that when we sing the bhajans in the presence of the Master, we get so much grace from him. We get so much attention from him. Because while singing the bhajan, we only think of the Master. And if our concentration is like that, there is nothing which can come between us and our beloved Master. And there is nothing which can stop our attention, our soul, to go closer to the Master. Sanji also used to say that the bhajans written by the perfect masters are in fact the voice of their soul. It is the prayer from their soul. And whenever they sing or whenever they write the bhajans, they do that experiencing the presence of their Master with them. So when we sing the bhajans written by the perfect masters, we get the grace from the Masters. And if we also do the same thing, if we also sing the bhajans, thinking and feeling and experiencing the presence of the Master, we can gain a lot from singing the bhajans. So like I said, that in the early days we didn't have bhajans, and gradually when Sanji allowed us to have some of the bhajans that he had written, Pathiji used to sing those bhajans, and some dear ones would get together with him during the daytime and learn bhajans from him. In those days, people used to just write down the bhajans because not everyone had even the tape recorders. And most of our sisters, our satsangi sisters from Delhi, who were fortunate to go with us to the programs with the group, they were the ones who were holding the monopoly of singing the bhajans. And also the girls from 77 RB Ashram, Pathiji's daughters and Pathiji's brother's daughters, they were the ones who would sing the bhajans. So this is how it started. Sanji used to say that when we sing the bhajans in the Sangat, in the praise of the Master, with all our devotion, that strengthens our relationship with him. Usually the Masters do not allow us to sing their praises on their face. But if we were to sing the bhajans, which are in fact the praises of the Masters, they don't have any objection. So when we sing the bhajans, in many bhajans, we pray, we plead to him, so he hears our prayers, he accepts our devotion, and all this strengthens our relationship with him. So because Sanji used to lay so much emphasis on singing the bhajans, and there was no such thing as a bhajan book, at least in those days. So a thought came to my mind that there should be a way to make a bhajan book. But in those days, the resources were very few, and we didn't have anyone who could do this seva. But the Masters know everything, and they have their own planning. So what happened was that there was one dear one who was just initiated, and he became so much attached to the satsang, and the idea of doing the seva came to him, and he requested Sanji to give him an opportunity to do some seva. In those days, if anything like this would come up and somebody would come to Sanji and ask him, Sanji would always say that go and talk to Papu. He might have something that you can do as a seva. So that dear one came to me and he told me what Sanji had told him. And because at that time, the idea of doing a bhajan book was already in the mind, so I said, well, I don't know of any other seva, but this is something which I feel that we should do. So do you have any expertise? Do you know to write or to publish anything? He said, well, no, I don't have any experience in that. I said, well, I also don't have any experience. In those days, neither I knew Hindi nor I knew Punjabi. Punjabi is the language in which Sanji used to write things. But that dear one said that it's okay, somehow we will manage. So both of us got together and we collected something like 30 or 32 bhajans, and we made the effort to prepare a book in Hindi. And you know that in those days there were no computers, so the traditional way of typing was typesetting every single letter by hand, and that's how things used to be printed. So we had a small printer in Balinagar who said, okay, he will do the work for us. So finally we got the book printed. We called that book Ajaib Kirpal Nu Yaad Karda, which means Ajaib remembers Kirpal. Even though we had made every possible effort to not have any mistakes, but you know, the proofreading and all that, and because we were not familiar with those kind of things, so there were many mistakes, there were many misprints in that bhajan book. But anyway, the dear ones were very happy to have something That was the first publication in the name of Sanji in India, the first bhajan book. And the dear ones were very happy to have them. And many dear ones who had never sung a bhajan, even they started singing bhajans. I remember once there was a program in the area of Janakpuri in Delhi. And there was a dear one, a very devoted dear one. And he had never sung a bhajan before. But in the satsang, he felt the urge to sing a bhajan. So when Sanji came and sat on the dais, just before the satsang, this dear one started singing the bhajan. The bhajan was, Mera Kagaz गुनाह वाला पाड़ दे और कुछ मांगदा नहीं. So he sang this bhajan, and while he was singing the bhajan, even though his attention was in the book, and occasionally he would look at Sanji, but whenever he would look up towards the dais where Sanji was sitting, he would always find that Sanji was looking at him. And right from the beginning, many other people also observed that Sanji was only looking at him. Sanji was only giving him the darshan while this bhajan was being sung. And Sanji looked so happy. He was smiling, but all his attention was towards this dear one. And people also started moving their heads and saying, well, where is Sanji looking? What is going on in here? But Sanji was all engrossed into this bhajan, and he was giving all his darshan, all his attention to this dear one. In that bhajan, there comes a verse, Teri mahima jaan na sakiye, noor ilahi pachaan na sakiye. So when that dear one sang this verse, there was a problem. Because of the misprint, there was an error in the printing. That dear one, instead of singing what he should have sung, he sang, Teri mahima jasa na sakiye. So instead of singing, Teri mahima jaan na sakiye, he sang, Teri mahima jasa na sakiye. Now this word jasa doesn't make any sense, and that was an error. As soon as I heard that, I became very upset that this dear one was not singing it correctly. So I at once pulled a book, and I saw that it was not this dear one's fault, it was our fault. We had not done the proofreading well, and that is why there was this mistake in the printing. And I felt so bad. And in my heart, in my mind, I apologized to Sanji. Anyway, Sanji was not bothered by this mistake, this error. He kept giving his darshan to this dear one, and in this way, the bhajan was completed. And then Sanji looked at him and he said, Bahut acha, very good. Just like he used to say to the dear ones when they would sing the bhajans in the groups. So at that time, this dear one did not know that he had made a mistake, because this was the first time that he was singing that bhajan. But after the satsang was over, I came up to him and I said, well, dear, he was an elderly person to me, so I said, well, Uncle Ji, you sang wrong. This is a mistake. And then he looked, he said, well, I just sang whatever is written. I said, yeah, you sang whatever is written, and it is a mistake in the printing. It is our mistake. But the bhajan was sung wrong. When he heard that, he became very sad that this is the first time I'm singing the bhajan to my master, and Even that, I could not do it perfectly, so he felt very bad. I was also feeling very bad, and the dear one who was doing the seva with me in making this book also felt very bad. So after the satsang, all three of us went to Sanji's room to apologize. So I told Sanji, we are very sorry that it is our mistake, that this error, this mistake happened in the bhajan. We know that there are so many other mistakes, but we are very sorry, we didn't do a good job. And that dear one, he was crying. And he said, Babaji, please forgive me. I did not sing the bhajan properly. And you know what Sanji did? Sanji looked at him. He got up from his bed and he gave him a hug. He embraced him. And he said, my dear, your plea, your prayer through this bhajan came straight to me. It moved my heart and it went straight to my beloved master. Your plea has been heard. So this is the story of this bhajan. There are so many other stories of the bhajan, and I hope that beloved master will allow me to share some more stories.